Ulterion followed his crabman friend Pangzi to his underwater home, where, once again, he encountered Palms, the were-octopus, this time the conqueror of the hermit, Pangzi's people. Ulterion fought with the would-be ruler, but that's a story for another day. Ulterion washed up on a beach. Ulterion made his way across the beach, wringing out his clothes and dusting off sand, and grumbling to himself.
I never thought I would get sick of washing up on a beach.
Ulterion grumbled his way through a forest of palm trees.
Nice fence with friends.
Till he heard music.
Civilization?
Ulterion grew nervous.
I hope they're nicer than the last time.
Ulterion found himself in a small village, where half mongoose, half people worked in little grass shops, while people roamed around purchasing services and wares. Ulterion smiled at the sight. He knew he was on one of the islands of the Isle of Irie. The Isle of Irie was home to the Mongoo. They were interesting creatures who seemed to live simply with little clothing, just enough to cover their bits, and some had fur in dreadlocks. Ulterion pulled out his list.
This should be easy. What am I getting here?
Ulterion unfurled the list. Ready to.
Coconut. Coconut? That's so easy.
Certainly. A Mongoo playing steel drums wandered over to Ulterion.
Hey, Mark.
Ulterion gave the steel drummer an annoyed nod.
Hello.
Turned his attention back to his list with a subtle sign that he wasn't interested in talking to the steel drummer. The steel drummer did not take the hint.
You look like you could use some food there.
Ulterion gave the steel drummer a smile, and a very false smile.
I'm alright, thank you.
The steel drummer continued to play. He shook his head.
Sorry, Mark. I hear you.
Ulterion glared at the steel drummer.
I don't.
What?
Ulterion was getting agitated, so his volume went up.
I said.
The steel drummer suddenly stopped playing.
Alright, E. The song is over.
The steel drummer held out his hand.
Coin, please.
Ulterion speared at the steel drummer. He reached in and tossed a gold coin on his hand. The steel drummer smiled and nodded.
Thanks for the patronage, brother.
Ulterion waved the drummer off.
Yes, it was fine. Get going.
One of the steel drummers saluted Ulterion as he started to walk off. Thought came to Ulterion and he shouted after the steel drummer.
Wait.
One of the steel drummers stopped and brought his attention back to Ulterion.
Want to make some more coin?
Be always ready for that coin.
I figured you would be. A gold coin if you tell me where I can get a coconut.
The steel drummer looked at Ulterion in abject horror. Ulterion looked at the steel drummer curiously.
Did I say something wrong?
The steel drummer slowly backed away.
You can keep the coin, brother.
But
Before Ulterion could say anything else, the steel drummer ran off. Ulterion watched after the steel drummer curiously.
that was odd.
Ulterion walked through town talking to several Mongoo. Every time he would ask about coconuts, his Mongoo conversation partner would run off. Ulterion found his way to a fruit stand. He bought some long yellow fruit. He bit into it, and immediately spit out the hard, rubbery piece in his mouth. He stared at the Mongoo shopkeeper in confusion and indignation.
This is a delicacy?
The shopkeeper gently took the fruit from Ulterion's hand.
Let me show you something now.
The shopkeeper peeled the hard, rubbery layer off the fruit, revealing a soft, white interior. The shopkeeper handed the fruit back to Ulterion.
Try that now.
Ulterion eyed the shopkeeper suspiciously. She pleaded with him.
Go on.
Ulterion slowly bit into the fruit, scowling as he prepared for a bitter taste. Ulterion was pleasantly surprised to find that the taste of the fruit was sweet.
Good.
The shopkeeper smiled. Ulterion finished his.
Say, what is this called?
That be a banana.
Ulterion smiled and finished his banana.
While we're on the subject of fruit, could you tell me where I can find a coconut? Everyone seems so...
The shopkeeper looked at Ulterion with wide-eyed horror, which confused Ulterion.
scared.
The shopkeeper looked around suspiciously, then gave Ulterion a very serious look.
Meet me here later tonight.
Ulterion looked around to see what the shopkeeper was looking for.
I guess, but what?
Ulterion turned back to talk with the shopkeeper, but she had already closed her shop. Night came over the island. Ulterion made his way through the island where only a shop or two remained open to cater for the night owl tourists. He did his best to make sure no one saw him. Ulterion made his way to the small shop, but was confused to find it closed.
Huh?
Ulterion looked around.
Where is she?
Ulterion's attention was arrested by a noise.
Psst.
Ulterion looked towards the back of the shop, where a hooded figure peeked around a corner and beckoned him to come.
Who are you?
The hooded figure put a finger to its lips. Ulterion looked around, making sure no one heard.
Oh, sorry.
The hooded figure brought back its hood to reveal it was the shopkeeper. Ulterion slapped himself in the head.
Sorry. I'm tired.
The shopkeeper rolled her eyes and slinked back behind her shop. Ulterion sneaked behind the shop, where the shopkeeper was waiting. She looked around to make sure no one was watching.
We got what you're looking for.
The shopkeeper pulled 2 coconuts from her robe and gently handed them to Ulterion. He took the coconuts, giving the shopkeeper a curious look.
Thanks. By the way, why are we doing this in secret?
The shopkeeper looked around.
It started a couple months ago. We're minding our own business. When? An army of ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds attacked us. They surprised us with their numbers, but the biggest surprise was that they stole our coconuts.
Ulterion looked at the shopkeeper curiously.
The coconuts? Why?
The shopkeeper put a finger to her muzzle.
Oh,
Ulterion looked around in worry.
the coconuts. Why?
The shopkeeper shakes her head and sighs.
We don't know. Coconuts were our biggest seller. It really hurt the economy.
Ulterion shook his head.
I'm so sorry.
The shopkeeper hung her head.
And every time we try to sell coconuts, we don't get attacked.
That's awful.
The shopkeeper hung her head and shook it.
It be.
The shopkeeper suddenly lifted her head and smiled.
Anyway, them coconuts are 100 gold.
Ulterion's eyes grew wide.
What?
The shopkeeper put a finger to her muzzle again. After giving the shopkeeper the rest of his gold, much to his chagrin, he sneaked through the night. Ulterion found a spot under some palm trees. He was about to shove the coconut into the bracelet when someone shouted at him.
What you have there?
Ulterion looked up to find an ogre staring down at him. Ulterion immediately hid the coconut behind his back.
Nothing.
The ogre glared down at Ulterion.
Me saw you holding something.
Ulterion shook his head.
No, I think you're seeing things, sir.
The ogre sneered.
You no trick me. Me have best eyes of ogre brothers and sisters. You show me hand.
Ulterion shrugged.
All right.
Ulterion shifted the coconut to his left hand and showed the ogre his empty right hand.
See? Nothing.
The ogre shook his head, clearly not believing Ulterion.
What in other hand?
Ulterion looked up in mock confusion.
I'm sorry?
What in other hand?
Ulterion put his free hand behind his back, shifted the coconut, and showed the ogre an empty left hand. The ogre sneered again.
Show me both hands.
Ulterion had dealt with ogres before, and they were generally pretty stupid. This one seemed a bit too smart for its own good. Ulterion did the only thing he could think of. He tossed the coconut aside and showed the ogre both hands. The ogre nodded with a smile of satisfaction on his face.
Good. You have no coconut. Carry on.
Thanks. Good night.
Ulterion ran off. Ulterion smiled as he ran a bit away from the ogre, until he heard,
Oh look, a coconut.
Ulterion winced. Ulterion followed the ogre to see where he was taking the coconut. Ulterion followed the ogre to a cave. Ulterion followed the ogre into the cave, very quietly. At one point he accidentally kicked a rock, which made the ogre stop
Huh?
and look around.
Someone there?
But he could find nothing. The ogre merely shrugged
Guess we just hear things.
and continued walking. Ulterion had just barely hid behind the boulder before the ogre could catch him. He peeked out to see the ogre walking away. Ulterion breathed a sigh of relief and continued pursuit. Ulterion followed the ogre into a wide cavern where he looked in shock. As he saw several ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and goblins milling about. He jumped behind the nearest cave wall. This was going to be tough. He peeked around the corner to see the ogre he was pursuing toss the coconut into a horde of coconuts. Ulterion thought that this would be the biggest test of his stealth skills. Ulterion ran behind a boulder where an ogre and troll were talking.
We can't believe we got a coconut.
We concur.
The ogre looked at his troll friend curiously.
What?
Troll shrugged.
We heard words somewhere.
Ulterion managed to sneak behind another boulder next to a table of hobgoblins playing a card game. Ulterion listened to them briefly.
How much you bet?
Another hobgoblin looked into his cards. He smiled.
I bet 2.
The other hobgoblins became excited.
2 gold?
The betting hobgoblin shook his head somberly.
No, 2 coconuts.
The other hobgoblins groaned.
Come on, Farga.
The hobgoblin named Forga shrugged.
What do you want from me? All we have is coconuts. You know how the master feels about gold.
Ulterion made his way to a stalagmite where some goblins and kobolds mingled and played a dice game.
Do we have any meat?
A kobold glared at the goblin.
What is your sin?
The goblin sneered.
A guy can dream, can't he?
Ulterion slowly made his way to the coconut horde. His fingers slowly reached towards a coconut. His fingers touched a coconut at the top, which was enough to knock it down. Ulterion winced as the coconut made its way down the pile. He watched in helpless horror as it hit the ground and rolled away. Ulterion looked around, ready to find himself surrounded by monsters, but was pleasantly surprised that no one was paying him any mind. Ulterion managed to avoid being seen and was running through the cave with his reappropriated coconut, slightly wondering what was up with the coconuts. Why were all these monsters collecting the coconuts when they clearly didn't want to? Who were they doing it for? These questions plagued Ulterion until he had a thought.
Not my problem.
And he continued running. Ulterion exited the cave with a big smile on his face. He had the coconut that he needed to throw back. All he had to do was put it into the bracelet. As he tried to do so, the wind picked up. And knocked the coconut out of Ulterion's hands.
No.
Ulterion reached for the coconut, but it was in vain as it sailed away on the winds.
Damn, what prompted the wind to...
Ulterion looked up, and his heart was filled with terror. As he saw a giant red dragon floating above him. The dragon landed in front of Ulterion and brought its massive head so it was face to face, or in this case face to body, with the human. It gave Ulterion a low growl and snorted, hitting Ulterion with burning steam Luckily, well, that depends on perspective, Ulterion's fear numbed him to the searing pain of the dragon's sting. He did his best to compose himself. He waved to the dragon while laughing nervously.
Hi.
Ulterion was pushed into the middle of the monsters. Everyone looked at the uninvited guest. The dragon stomped in, glaring at his subjects in anger.
I found this outside with one of my coconuts. Would anyone like to explain how that happened?
Ulterion looked around the ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds, cringing in fear. One hobgoblin came forward, the one called Forger, trembling in fear.
We are sorry, sir.
Forger was interrupted by the dragon's foot crushing him. The dragon sneered.
Thanks for the honesty.
For good measure, the dragon grinded Forger's remains into the ground, then addressed the rest of his subjects.
Perhaps you need me to show you what we do with intruders. Allow me to
The dragon noticed Ulterion sneaking his way towards the cavern opening. The dragon rolled his eyes and he slammed a claw in front of the opening. Ulterion slowly turned around with a full smile.
I'm sorry, was I part of this conversation?
The dragon smiled.
You're almost too amusing to kill.
Ulterion smiled back.
So you'll let me go?
The dragon shook his head.
You're not that amusing.
The dragon raised a claw over Ulterion's head.
Any last words?
Ulterion racked his brain for some plan to escape this dragon. Then he remembered how he convinced another dragon to become a banker. So he thought the strategy might work again. Ulterion smiled.
May I ask a question?
The dragon shrugged.
I might answer.
Why do you have a hoard of coconuts? Don't dragons usually have a hoard of gold and treasures?
The dragon nodded.
Normally I would have gold and treasure, but...
You really like coconuts?
The dragon looked disgusted.
Ew, gross. I'm a dragon. Flesh and meat are the things that sustain me.
Ulterion nodded as he put up his hands in a defensive posture.
All right, just checking.
Ulterion looked at the monsters present.
So, you use your treasure to pay your men?
The dragon shot a glance to his subjects.
Their payment is living another day.
The monsters shrank back in fear. The dragon turned his attention back to Ulterion.
Any other banal questions?
Just one more, if I may.
The dragon snarled.
You may. One question.
Ulterion nodded sheepishly.
Thank you, O wonderful dragon. Most magnificent.
Out with it.
Ulterion cringed back.
Right. Anyway, what's with the coconut hoard?
The dragon sneered.
It's because of those damn Mongoo. I was flying over the island, and as I saw the Mongoo below, I thought they would make a great snack, so I flew down. I breathed my flame all over their village. See how many of them I could roast. I landed to see the fruits of my labor. But I was surprised, to find that the Mongoo were unscathed and staring at me in confusion. In my rage, I blasted them with more flame. I thought to myself, they must be toast now. But to my surprise, when the smoke cleared, the Mongoo were standing there once again, unscathed. And laughing at me. I was enraged. I decided to cast a spell. I would spray those furry bastards with a cloud of poison. I figured that had to do it, but... Huh? When the smoke cleared, there were no bodies dropping, there was no one choking, there was just Mongoo. Laughing at me. I figured they weren't immune to claws and teeth, so I brought my claw down at them. But I didn't anticipate how fast the little bastards moved. I snapped at them with my teeth. But they avoided that as well. So I figured a sweeping tail swipe would do the job. But I, unfortunately, didn't see the Mongoo warrior with a spear. He stabbed me in the... I was stabbed, so in pain and humiliation, I beat a tactical retreat. And as I flew away, I heard those little bastards laughing at me. I have my revenge. I spent a month watching the Mongoo, trying to find a weakness, and I found that coconuts were important to their economy. I found a tribe of ogres and persuaded them to serve me. I did the same with a tribe of trolls. And the goblinoids. And the kobolds for good measure. I sent my army after the Mongoo people and stole all their coconuts.
The dragon laughed. Clearly self-amused.
Now those furry little bastards don't have their precious coconuts.
Ulterion smiled uncomfortably.
Hilarious. I'm curious. Why don't you just work something out with the Mongoo?
The dragon thought for a moment, then shook his head.
No.
Ulterion was taken aback.
No? But why? Do you just hate them that much?
The dragon nodded.
Yes.
Ulterion felt defeated. He wasn't sure what to do as the dragon raised its claw high in the air, ready to bring it down on the human.
Are we done with the questions?
Ulterion prepared for his fate. When he looked at the face of the ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds stared at the scene, a smile formed on his lips as a new plan formed in his mind. He feigned a defeated sigh.
No more questions, just praise.
Ulterion started clapping, which confused and intrigued the dragon's ego. Ulterion nodded as he continued to applaud.
Indeed, it's an honor to be killed by such a clever creature.
Is that right?
Of course. I mean, you found creatures more powerful than you, so you found an army more powerful than them.
The dragon was acting a bit bashful. His army started to listen, just like Ulterion planned.
I mean, how do you keep such a powerful force loyal since they can dominate people more powerful than you?
The dragon thought about an answer.
Why?
The dragon suddenly realized what Ulterion was doing. He looked back at his army, who glared at him with rage. The dragon looked worried as he realized how things turned.
Damn it.
As the dragon formed his former army, Ulterion slipped away casually. Ulterion had found actual treasure under the dragon's hoard of coconuts. He used his newfound wealth to rule over the Mongoo until he was ousted. But that's a story for another day. Ulterion ran through the jungle with a few Mongoo chasing after him. Ulterion found a large tree to climb and started climbing. Ulterion climbed to the top of the tree and looked down as agitated Mongoo passed underneath. Ulterion breathed a sigh of relief. But his relief disappeared as he realized he didn't know how to get down.
Well, this is an issue.
Night fell over the jungle as Ulterion fell asleep in his perch. When day came, Ulterion was just waking to find a spear tip aiming towards his face.
Hello?
Ulterion looked up towards the spear's owner, who was a rough-looking gnome in a loincloth.
Is this your tree?
The savage gnome merely nodded. Ulterion laughed nervously.
Me, Ulterion. Me, friend.
The savage gnome cleared his throat.
Excuse me. I had something in my throat.
The savage gnome gave Ulterion a curious look.
Say, why are you talking like that?
Ulterion sneered. Thorwick led Ulterion through the branches.
Sorry for the aggressive greeting, chap. I'm sure you understand.
Ulterion did his best to listen to his jungle host, but he was only a good climber when he was running from someone.
It's not a problem. I would be upset if I found a stranger in my house.
Thorwick led Ulterion into a tree where there were some crudely made stairs, much to Ulterion's relief.
Are you hungry, dear boy?
Ulterion looked down at his stomach. Ulterion nodded.
That would be great.
Ulterion was impressed by the savage gnome's home. He'd built himself many basic amenities that you would certainly not find in a jungle. He had a kitchen with all the utensils one would need for cooking meals, as well as a living room with chairs and a couch made from carved wood and plenty of moss for cushions. Ulterion's host gave him a smile.
How does steak sound?
Ulterion had a big smile on his face.
That sounds divine.
Ulterion ate ravenously. Ulterion looked up to see the savage gnome watching him.
Sorry, it's been a while since lunch.
The savage gnome shrugged and ate his meal ravenously as well. Ulterion shrugged and continued eating. Ulterion and the savage gnome sat on the couch. Ulterion smiled at his savage host.
I can't believe how rude I've been. I've never asked your name.
The savage gnome smiled.
I forgot to introduce myself.
The savage gnome jumped up and bowed.
Thwak von Brekishin, at your service.
Ulterion was taken aback.
That's an interesting name for a gnome.
Thorwick gave his guest a curious look.
Gnome?
Ulterion gave his gnome a curious look.
Yes. Are you unfamiliar with the term?
Thorwick thought about it for a moment. He shook his head.
Not familiar, no. The animals call me the Sky Child.
Ulterion scratched his head.
Sky Child? Wait, you can talk to animals?
Thowak nodded with a curious look on his face.
Can't you talk to animals?
Ulterion shook his head.
No, I think it's a, Sky Child thing.
Thowak thought about it for a moment,
Huh.
then shrugged.
Anyway, dessert.
Ulterion thought about telling Thowak the truth as he saw bits of gnomish flying box built into the savage gnome's home. Ulterion decided that this particular Sky Child didn't need to be informed, and it wouldn't help him to find Macawya feathers. Ulterion decided he would simply smile and say,
Dessert sounds great.
Ulterion and Thowak were lying in chairs, rubbing their full stomachs and sighing in satisfaction. Ulterion thought to ask how Thowak attained baking ingredients in a jungle, but he decided it was best not to, in fear of ruining the experience. He decided to ask a different question.
That pie was delicious.
Thowak smiled.
Thank you. I love baking. I find it very relaxing.
Was that some type of poultry?
Thowak looked curiously at his guest.
That was pecan pie.
Oh. Anyway, speaking of poultry, I need to find some feathers.
Thowak was taken aback.
Feathers?
What kind of feathers?
Macawya feathers?
Is that a problem? What do you need them for?
Thowak glared at Ulterion. Ulterion was nervous from Thowak's sudden change in demeanour. The savage gnome had moved closer with a suspicious look on his face. Ulterion looked down at his bracelet with a ruby, trying to think of a better answer than I'm looking for ingredients for an evil wizard.
I, like birds, and my mission is to find different feathers from all over the world.
Ulterion had told some great lies. This was one of his worst. Thowak stared at Ulterion for a long time. Ulterion felt sweat forming on his temples. The silence was going to drive Ulterion mad, until Thowak shrugged.
All right, I'll take you. Really?
Thowak nodded.
Sure.
Ulterion breathed a sigh of relief. Thowak swung through the trees, jumping from branch to branch. Ulterion, since he was not as athletic as his savage friend, he decided to walk as Thowak sailed through the trees. The question nagged at him. He looked up to the savage gnome.
Say, Thwack.
Thowak turned his attention to Ulterion while swinging through the trees with little effort.
You seemed very upset when I asked about the feathers. What were you afraid I would use them for? I thought you might be a wizard.
Ulterion was surprised by the answer.
What's bad about wizards? Ugh. Their arcane abominations take energy from the land and twist it into death and destruction.
The ruby on Ulterion's bracelet glowed with Bonefoot's voice coming out of it.
That's what I do with them dead end what?
Thowak looked down at Ulterion curiously.
What was that?
Ulterion slapped a hand over the ruby as if it would shut Bonefoot up.
I was just clearing my throat.
Ulterion pretended to clear his throat.
It's so dry here. In the jungle?
Ulterion closed his eyes, realizing the stupid thing he just said.
Yes.
Ulterion was prepared for Thowak to start questioning him, but what he wasn't prepared for was the savage gnome saying,
The city is ahead.
Ulterion's tension was relieved for the moment. Ulterion continued to walk, as Thowak continued to sail through the trees. Ulterion saw the city in the distance, and his jaw dropped as he saw a solid gold tower shining in the distance.
I thought it was a myth.
Ulterion had heard stories of the Macawya city of gold, but that's all he thought they were, stories. But here it was, in the flesh, well, the gold. Greed made Ulterion's feet start running. Flock saw Ulterion running ahead. He called after his new friend.
Tyrion, wait! You don't know what you'll encounter.
But Ulterion had already gotten too far. Ulterion didn't hear his new friend calling out to him. He was transfixed on the golden tower ahead. Greed had deafened him, until he heard a different noise. Ulterion looked up over the lake where a humanoid bird child seemed to be drowning. Ulterion looked from the drowning child then to the golden tower in the distance, then to the drowning child, and back to the golden tower. Ulterion's need to help the child fought with his need for gold. The bird child had left his parents to explore the jungle, despite the warning of their parents. It had wandered too close to the lake, and decided to drink from it, in spite of the warning of their parents. And they went to drink from the water. They were dragged in by the creature. The creature tried to bring the bird child down and drown them, but they were able to slip out of the creature's grip and float to the surface. The bird child forgot they could swim. The bird child's panic grew as they felt something grab them. Tried to struggle until it heard.
Stop! Fighting me! I'm trying to help you!
The bird child understood that this creature was trying to help him. He certainly understood what the creature was saying and stopped struggling. Ulterion managed to get the bird to the riverbank. Ulterion and the bird child laid on the riverbank, gasping for breath. The bird child looked towards the water and saw some ripples coming towards them. Ulterion's head shot, and he looked where the bird child was looking. He saw the ripples too. A small piranha came out of the water. Ulterion started to break into laughter.
What?
Ulterion looked at the bird child as he pointed a thumb to the piranha.
You're afraid of that?
The bird child didn't look at Ulterion. They kept their gaze on the piranha. Ulterion's laughter was ended by the bird child's horror.
What is the problem?
Ulterion looked back to the piranha who arose from the water, revealing that the piranha was the head of a large beast that looked like a gorilla mixed with a fish. Ulterion looked at the beast in horror.
Oh, that's the problem.
The gorilla fish beat its chest and roared at Ulterion, before swiping a massive clawed gorilla fist towards him.
Whoa!
Ulterion barely ducked under the swipe. The gorilla fish took another swipe at Ulterion, with its claws catching a bit of Ulterion's shirt. But, luckily for Ulterion, did not cut into flesh, but it did cause Ulterion to stumble back.
Whoa!
And fall on his hindquarters.
Oof.
Ulterion looked up at the gorilla fish charging towards him. Ulterion put his hands up in an ineffective and pathetic attempt to defend himself. Before the gorilla fish could smash Ulterion into the dirt, a shout rang through the air.
Chakadeo!
A spear sailed through the air and stabbed into the gorilla fish in the shoulder.
Deo Chaka
The spear removed itself from gorilla fish's shoulder. watched the spear fly backwards away
What the?
into Thawak's hand. Thawak took a defensive position as he brandished his spear towards the gorilla fish.
Back to the depths with you, monster.
The gorilla fish beat its chest and roared at Thawak. But Thawak stood his ground and stared down the gorilla fish. No, stared up, considering the height of this. The beast and the savage gnome stared at each other. Ulterion looked back and forth between the two combatants, feeling the tension and hating every minute of it. The gorilla fish snorted before going back in the water. Ulterion looked back at Thawak and glared back at him angrily.
What are you doing, dear boy? The jungle is dangerous. You can't just run off like that.
Ulterion picked himself up off the ground and shrugged.
I was trying to help the bird child.
Thawak looked around and then back to Ulterion.
What bird child?
What do you mean, what bird?
Ulterion looked around but could find no sign of the bird child.
Child.
Ulterion stayed close to Thawak as they continued their journey as close as they could since the gnome was through the trace. Ulterion couldn't remember how long he'd walked, but his sore legs told him it was a while. Before he could whine to Thawak, the savage gnome dropped down in front of him.
Stop!
Ulterion smiled.
Are we stopping for a break?
Thawak shook his head.
No.
Ulterion's smile faded.
Oh.
Thawak smiled.
So we are here.
Ulterion gave Thawak a curious look.
Here?
Ulterion and Thawak hid in some bushes as they observed the golden city. Ulterion looked to his savage friend in curiosity.
Why are we sneaking around? There's no one.
Thawak clapped his hand over Ulterion's mouth.
Shh.
Thawak looked around.
They are very elusive and very territorial. We need to be careful.
Ulterion nodded.
Mm-hmm.
Thawak gestured with his head.
Follow me.
Thawak and Ulterion made their way through the brush. Ulterion and Thawak continued through the brush. Ulterion kept looking around.
What should I look out for? What do you mean? What do the Macawya look like?
Oh, they are quite a beautiful people.
Ulterion stopped as he found a spear tip pointing towards his throat. He looked towards whoever was holding the spear. Thawak nodded, looking confused.
Are they bird people with a variety of colorful feathers?
Yes. How did you know?
Thawak found several spear tips aimed towards him. He looked around to find himself and Ulterion surrounded by bird people with golden spears aimed towards them.
Just a guess.
Ulterion and Thawak found themselves chained in a dungeon.
I feel like things could have gone better.
Thawak nodded.
Indeed.
Ulterion and Thawak heard footsteps. Ulterion racked his brain for an escape plan as guards approached. Two Macawya guards stood before the two captives. Ulterion gave them a nervous smile.
Hello.
One of the Macawya guards pulled out some keys.
You're free to go.
Ulterion and Thawak were in shock.
What?
Ulterion and Thawak were brought before what looked like the Macawya chief sitting on a golden throne.
Greetings, guests.
Ulterion and Thawak looked at each other in confusion, then back to their host with the same confusion.
Greetings.
The Macawya chief turned his attention to Ulterion.
Thank you.
Ulterion smiled and shrugged,
Not a problem.
then scratched his head curiously.
What did I do?
The Macawya chief gestured his hand. Ulterion stared in shock as the bird child he was saved earlier stood before him.
You saved my son from a horrible fate. I am forever grateful. How may I repay you?
Ulterion gave the Macawya chief a nervous look.
Could I have your feathers?
The Macawya chief and Thawak stared at Ulterion in shock. Ulterion looked between both men.
I collect feathers.